Winter Creek, I took my iPad and I found an app called Doodle Buddy. And you can see it on the screen here. When you push on it, it comes up with a little screen with all these colors. And I'm doing a black and white. And so the cursor is way over to the left. And then I can move the bar back and forth and get a larger imprint or a smaller imprint. And what I'm doing now is I'm blurring. I've poked on the blurring uh, software that comes with this. And then with my finger, I'm blurring some areas on the iPad that I want to show that it's going to be a little fuzzy versus the majority of the paper. Now, in duplicating that same type but not a different pattern, what I did was on dry paper, I took neutral tint and I made big bold strokes, not thinking of trees, but you can see it looks like trees. Try not to do that. Try to just think of it as a shape, and now determining where that horizontal line should be, because I want some land in the in the background. And so what I'm doing is just brushing it on, not really worrying too much about it looking like trees, but more of just a shape. And also what I've done here in the large part. Then I'll take a dryer and I'll dry it, just not totally dry, but just take some of the moisture out so that I don't have a totally wet into wet process. And then I'll take some darker color and I'll put it into the negative spaces between the trees. Now you can look at those marks, those dark marks, as a tree, but try to look at and see it as a negative space. And that's basically what I'm doing, just looking at that and cutting behind. It's called painting behind the tree. So the tree stump now is going to be light against dark. And basically I've taken my brush just like I took my finger on my apple sketch and with clear water and started to blur some of those areas so they work into each other. And you use a damp brush or a watered down brush to do that, but don't put too much water in your brush because it could push everything away. Now I'm putting in a little bit of darker values to see what that would look like, and then sprinkling on some darker values of the neutral tint, letting them go where they go. Sometimes it's better if you go ahead and tap it with another brush instead of just sprinkle. I wanted to cover up that corner up there just to make that as a background color, and then coming down and letting some of those things run together. Next is what I'm doing is painting the negative space around some of the rocks, and then painting that value down towards the lower part of the composition. The rocks, the two rocks up there is not working very well, and so I'm going to sort of blend them in, and then go again at it. Maybe to save some of the tops of those rocks for another time in the painting process. Taking a wet brush, damp, and just sort of sprinkling that in there so that we kind of bring it into a hole. And now let's see what we can do here. Well, we're going to make this darker, but now I'm going to go across with some trees that are dark against light, and then I've got these two trees that are light against dark. It's always an abstract pattern, and you try to see where you can go with this to make it into sort of a semi-abstract landscape with trees and rocks and water. And when you put something down, as I've done up in the left-hand corner, if I'm not satisfied, I'll take a damp brush and smear it around a little bit. Now I'm going to dry it. Now I've got to work that whole area in. I'm not doing any pencil drawing at all on this, which some of you might want to do. But I figure as if I paint with shape, negative and positive, I'll come out with something that's better than a deliberate drawing. And so that's what I'm doing. It's just a sketch. I don't really care if it's not going to turn out. And so I'm just sort of looking at that as water coming down, and a few little bit background color. And let's see what I can do up here. Let's put that down. Let's get us some real diagonal strokes a little fast and put it across there. Get sort of a dry brush effect on top of the paper. And then bringing up that value inside the rock a little bit. So that's the top parts of the rock is showing. And coming down and just trying to think about where this painting wants to go and how I can help it to get it there. Okay, now this is my other thing. I want to put a branch down here, a fallen tree. It'd be kind of a nice linear thing. It's sticking it into the water, so it's going to bring that negative space of water into the landscape, kind of like a bridge. You can see I've got one big rock in the middle, which I rather like, and I got a highlight right there. So if I make it a little darker behind that, that can be another start of a rock. I don't like to outline them totally on. I like some escape route for the eye to travel through the rock. Now I think I got to do a little bit more in this negative space over here because it seems to be a little bit barren. And so I want to try to just duplicate this just a little bit. Okay, now here goes my other strokes. And I'll just keep modeling that. And put a little bit of a boat in here just to give us sort of a scale to know how big these rocks are, and trees, and a little figure can be put in here, and a little motor at the end of the boat. And that's the end of my sketch. Now, if you want to, you can take some watercolor ground and pick up some lighter portions that you missed in your paper, your painting rather. Then thin parts. There we go. And okay, thank you. Now we're going on to the painting.